Hello everyone, this is Angelica Sakath at the Osteopathy and Healing Center. I wanted just to clarify something today about the different styles of intuition. So last time we defined what intuition is and what medical intuition is. And I wanted to clarify that yes, there's different styles, and the one type of style that there is called channeling from guides. So this is when an intuitive gets information by paying attention to a third party. And the third party is called a guide. And the intuitive is called a channeler. So again, channeling can be used to gain information about the body. However, one goes directly to the body to get the information. And this is not channeling, because there isn't a third party. So I just wanted to clarify that. We talked about intuition being perceived with our senses, with our different senses, and we defined what that was. And you might have been asking yourself, or may be asking right now, can the body talk? Well, medical intuitives believe that yes, the body does talk. And then you may be asking, well, how? Well, it's been studied in many ways over time. And later on, we're just going to get into the history of intuition that might help answer that question for you. So the goal of a medical intuitive is to facilitate health and healing. Medical intuition was coined by Dr. Norman Shelley in 1988, and he used a different style of medical intuition, which is called a map-based style. He was a renowned medical doctor and an advocate of holistic health. He trained in Harvard as a neurosurgeon, and he was one of the founders of the American Holistic Association. He trained Carolyn Myss. So Dr. Norman Shelley trained Carolyn Myss, who had a PhD and was also a pioneer in this field. And they both helped to open the eyes of professionals and the public to the fact that our bodies are complex energy systems filled with incredible information. People were using magnetism and mesmerism. They were using their intuition to diagnose medical conditions and give recommendations. An example of this is Edgar Cayce. He studied 16,000 cases were recorded, and 1,800 diagnoses of health conditions were made by Edgar Cayce. So we've learned so far that energy is everywhere. We know from experience that energy could be measured, or we might have seen it or heard about energy being measured. We've maybe felt the effects of energy. For example, you touch a stove and you get burned. That's heat, and we feel the effects of it. And it can be changed by interacting with other energy sources. So the eyewitness books, I'm just going to show you the ones that I have. There's a couple of them that you can read to learn more about energy, such as this one. And I'm going to bring out some points in this book, probably in the next video. There is an eyewitness book on electricity. This one I'll talk about some points from this book today. And there's also another book that I read on medicine, also eyewitness books, and they're great to understand electricity and energy. So the first thing that I wanted to say when I read the book, so we're talking about the one on electricity, that book there, about the body's electrical system and about how that electrical system within our bodies is measured. So we're going to talk about that. Since the beginning of the universe, there has been electricity. Even when there was no life on the planet, more than 4 billion years ago, there were bolts of lightning that lit up the skies. Lightning is a demonstration of the energy form we call electricity. So that's from the Eyewitness book on electricity, and I'm going to say some more points about electricity and medicine now. It says that the watery solution of chemicals in living tissue makes a good electrical conductor. Now, in the past, in the history, as you'll read in the book, it talks about conductors, and conductor is defined as any material that allows electricity to move through it. In the past, researchers used 2 different metals in a jar filled with liquid, and that liquid was called the electrolyte that would be able to conduct the electricity. Now, our bodies also have electrical signals that pass through it. It has its own electrical signals or impulses that travel in the nerves throughout the body. And these signals are very small. They're measured in microvolts. And you may be able to see Dr. Still, the skeleton, and I'm just going to show you a part of Dr. Still because I just want you to bring your attention to the yellow nerves, and that's what we're talking about, is the nervous system and these nerves being able to conduct electricity to the rest of the body. Now, the Italian anatomist called Luigi Galvani, he dissected frogs, and he saw that frogs had nerves as well, and muscles. And he was able to measure the discharges of these impulses using a machine. He studied the effects of electric charge from Leyden jars. And if you Google or if you go on the internet or read the book, you'll see what a Leyden jar is. It's basically a glass jar or a bottle that's used to accumulate electricity. And he also studied the effects of electrostatic machines on animals. Electricity, yes, it's invisible, so that's why we need these machines to be able to measure it. In the book, you will learn about many machines that were made over history. Now, Mr. Galvani, when he brought the tissue of the frog, so we're talking about his experiments, and he brought it in contact with 2 metals, he noticed that there were convulsions in the limbs of these dead animals. The chemicals in the nerves and the muscles, so chemicals in the nerves and also the muscular system, when placed between 2 metals, had an electrical chemical reaction, making an electric cell. And throughout history, you'll learn how different electric cells were made to improve the ability of the cell to carry the electricity and for us to use it like a battery. Now, electricity, I'm going to mainly focus on how it relates to the body, electricity, although you could get into other things like cars, but we're going to talk about the human body. Human life depends on electricity. About every second, tiny electrical signals spread throughout the heart muscle, so our heart. and it triggers and coordinates what's called a heartbeat. These signals, they echo through the body tissues to our skin, and here they can be detected by metal sensors, and they can be displayed on an electrocardiogram as wavy lines. So these tiny ripples of electrical current that pass from our working organs, such as the heart, through the body's tissues to the skin, can be detected by metal sensors and displayed as a wavy trace. The first ECG was developed in 1903 by William Enthoven. This was, he lived between 1860 to 1927, and he was learning how different machines work while helping us understand energy. So it's a lot of material, so I have memorized all this material, and all this material you can find in the book, and some of it is common sense. We interact with energy on a daily basis. So the pacemaker. The heart's beating rate is set by its own pacemaker, a patch of tissue in the upper right hand wall of the heart. And when it's faulty, or the electrical conducting tissue that carries the impulses through the heart muscle fails, then an artificial pacemaker is inserted underneath the skin and connected to the jugular vein by a long wire that helps the heart regulate its heartbeat. Electricity forms the basis of a nerve signal. For example, our eyes, we receive light rays, and it's turned into tiny electrical signals that pass along nerves into the brain and into the rest of our body. Our awareness and our ability to think, to move, depends on tiny electrical signals whizzing around the nerve pathways inside our brains. The electrical signals detect, coordinate, and control, especially in the sense organs, brain, and muscles. The final point that I wanted to say about this information we've covered so far is that we've learned electricity is real, and if you're interested more about it, you can read the same book, Electricity, the Eyewitness book, or there's other resources that also talk about electricity. It's a book that's easily understood, and it's great when you're starting to learn the principles of energy. It was more difficult for me to understand the electricity book, so I would actually recommend first reading the energy one and then the electricity one, because it builds on the concepts that you learn in the energy book. So in the next video, I'll be talking about energy. So we've covered electricity and it being in our bodies, and that energy is real. We talked a little bit about history, and we're going to talk more about history and energy in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed that, and take care. Bye-bye.